West Virginia mountain melody. There's a new river singing to me. Oh, this time it's wild and free, your West Virginia mountain melodies.
Okay, today we are on the road with this edition of Around and About the Clarksburg History Museum. May is a month for remembering those we loved and have lost. We have Memorial Day in May and also Mother's Day. And both of those days are greatly celebrated around the country, but especially here in Grafton, West Virginia. We're going to talk about Mother's Day and Anna Jarvis, where and how it started right here in north central West Virginia. And this special day has a Clarksburg connection, which we will discuss in a few minutes. But I'm here today at the Anna Jarvis Birthplace Museum in Taylor County, and my guest is Olive Ricketts. Thank you for having me here today. And it wasn't planned, but I guess today is your birthday and Anna Jarvis's birthday, so happy birthday.
Thank you.
Let's start off by just telling the listeners Anna Jarvis's story, where she was born, when she was born, her family.
Okay. Well, actually, she was born in the house that we call the Anna Jarvis Birthplace Museum. But how they got there was that Anne Marie Reeves Jarvis, the mother of Anna, she was born in Culpeper County, Virginia, and her father was a Methodist minister. So when she was about 12, he got a letter saying that he was being transferred over the western mountains of Virginia to a place called Philippi. So Anne actually grew up in Philippi. So Granville was born, her father was born down here in a little town or community called Pruneytown. And his dad was a Baptist minister, and he too was sent to Philippi to actually build the Baptist church there and ministered in it. So Anne and Granville met and married in 1850, and they had a couple of children when a friend kept telling them, you really need to check out the little community of Webster. It is growing in such leaps and bounds, it would make a much better place for your mercantile business. So Granville decided finally, after he was bothered by his friend over and over, decided to take a trip over here, looked it over, and liked what he saw. So he moved the family over here in 1854 and built the house at that time.
Now, where is Webster for those that don't know?
Okay, Webster is 4 miles south of Grafton on 119. And if you come from Philippi, it's 12 miles from Philippi on 119 north. So it's kind of in the middle. So, but the thing about Webster then was, it had 43 families already here, a big woolen mill, grist mill, hotel, boarding house, a bordello saloon, and 3 churches, a Methodist, Baptist, and a non-denominational one. So now we've still got the 2 churches, the Methodist and the Baptist, and the house, but almost everything else is pretty much gone. But because the railroad, the B&O Railroad, did not go any further south than here, it was a place where people had to bring their horse and wagons and pick up supplies that they might have ordered up north. Well, it was a perfect place to put a mercantile, so he did. He built a mercantile, put his livery stable on this side of the road, and on the other side was the house. So they moved from here when Anna was only about, she was born in 1864, so they moved here sometime around 1865 to 1866, because he wanted to buy a hotel. He was a very good businessman, very good. I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a minute. So he bought a hotel in downtown Grafton, and he opened his mercantile there. Plus, he kept this one. He let one of his employees live in the house. And so he died in 1902. And after he died, then Anna came and got her mom and her sister Lillian, who was blind, and took them to Philadelphia, because after college, Anna taught school here for about 7 years. But then she moved to Philadelphia.
Where did she teach school at?
Here at this old Central. Well, they call it the Old Central High School because it's tore down now. But that school was there, and it was up on behind the shrine, and it where she taught school. But I'll back it up because so they came here and they moved in. They continued to have children. They ended up having 14 altogether, but only 4 of them lived to become an adult: Anna, Claude, and Josiah and Lillian. So he sent all 4 of his children to college. Anna got to go to the Augusta Female Academy in Stanton, Virginia, where she met Woodrow Wilson. If you go there today, it's called Mary Baldwin College, and Woodrow's birthplace is right beside of the college. And his dad happened to be the dean, one of the deans of the college at the time. So Woodrow and Anna became really good friends. And another little tidbit about Anna, she must have never dated. She never had a gentleman caller, a suitor, a beau. None of those was ever mentioned in a diary or letter. But she did say Woodrow Wilson and her were friends. So when he became president, her and a few of prominent legislators went to him, and that's when he signed Joint Resolution 263 on May 8th, 1914, making it a legal holiday for the first time. So that's jumped ahead. But so, she was only here till she was about a year and a half old in this community, but she grew up in Grafton. And her mother, that's how the shrine got involved, because it was a Methodist church, and her mother taught Sunday school there. So Anna would listen to her mother all the time, teaching about the women of the Bible. Nobody hardly ever covered the women of the Bible. They always talk about Noah and, all the big people, Moses.
She was really ahead of her time, wasn't she?
Yes, she was.
For women's.
And even here, she was way ahead of her time. If I would like to be like anybody, it would be Mrs. Jarvis. She, in all the condolence letters that I've read after her death, everyone would not explain, what's the word I'm looking for? Anyhow, they called her a soft-spoken Gentile woman that never, ever lost her cool and could teach. I always say she could get the devil to give up his pitchfork because she did so many great things. In 1856, they had a plague in Taylor County that was killing children like crazy. And so she wrote her brother, which was a doctor. He came over the mountain when he was 16. His name is James Edmund Rees. He became famous in his own right. He started the West Virginia Medical Association, was instrumental in national, became the first pathologist in Tennessee, and he wrote a book on how to use the microscope. So Mrs. Jarvis wrote him a letter and said, "Would you please come? The children here are dying like flies." And she lost 3 of them in that month. So month of December, 1856. So he came, and they formed what they call the Mother's Day work clubs at that time, and they began teaching all these different community women how to do sanitary conditions. So when the Civil War broke out, and the first group of men came here, the 9th Indiana, that group got the measles. So these women all came together and started saving these soldiers' lives because they knew how to sanitize everything and keep it from spreading.
Well, she was almost the head of Clara Barton then, wasn't she?
Right. And also the same thing with the Underground Railroad. Now, we did not know for several years that she was even a part of that. That was an accidental find. And so we found out that in the kitchen, there's a trap door. And you can put people down there. They can't stand, but they can set up straight up. And you put about 50 down there. It doesn't look like when you go in the house. I'm going to take you over for a couple minutes anyway. And so under there is where she hid the slaves. Even though she was from Culpeper County, Virginia, she did not believe in slavery. Every now and then she would hire people to be a servant when she was doing something special that she wanted a servant to bring in the food from the summer kitchen into the house, especially when it was hot. They would cook out in the summer kitchen. So, but she never had slaves. And so she helped with the Underground Railroad all through the Civil War.
Do you know how she got them out of here to where did
Well,
they
there was
go?
a gentleman over in Town. There used to be a mansion over there that had hidden rooms and underground tunnels that went places. They tore it down before I got here. And so he would come and get them at a certain time and then take them to his place, and then he could get them up north. She never transported anybody. All she did was hide them there temporarily forever, how long they needed to wait. And of course, the Union troops were here the whole time. They were here the whole 4 years of the Civil War.
So right under their noses, she was doing all this.
Because McClellan arrived here on June 22nd, 1861. He left 10,000 troops in Webster. And they took over all the buildings, including the churches. I've got 2 pews out here that they butchered cattle on and hacked them up. So the churches, when they got new pews finally, they gave me 2 of them. And so, everything was just tore up in Webster. I don't know how she did it because, she even doctored the soldiers from the South. If a soldier was brought into her, they were not allowed to touch him. She took them upstairs to the bedroom and doctored them until they were ready to go. And then she saw for their safe passage. Nobody shot her. Nobody hung her. This was not heard of.
She must have been truly loved and respected then.
She had to have been, and she was a devout Christian, man. Everything she preached, she lived. And I'll tell you this final story, and then you can ask another question. But at the end of the Civil War, men were still mad at each other. They were taking pot shots because this was kind of a dividing line. Everything north went north, everything south went south. So there was a lot of people that were still fighting after the war ended. Well, she said, enough is enough, that we got to get our communities back together. So she asked all the women to bring all the men to the courthouse, which at that time was in Prunytown. And she dressed in gray and her friend dressed in blue, which was from the South. And she spoke to them. Now, I don't know what she said. There's no record of that. But the record showed that this minister said she had them to play a Star-Spangled Banner for the North, away down south in Dixie for the South. And then she had the band to play Old Lang Syne. When they got to the words, will acquaintances be forgotten, the men laid down their weapons, 5,000 of them, and hugged and kissed and went back together as a community.
Oh, my.
Now, what did this woman say?
I don't know. Wish we knew.
Yeah, I said it's so sad that nobody wrote down something about her speech. But the minister of the church said she's going to die. They're going to shoot them all. And, when she stepped out on the balcony of the courthouse, she started speaking and everybody listened. But then they laid down their weapons at the end of it and got back together as a community and started working together to get their farms back, and get their crops in, all that. So I call that a woman, a spectacular woman.
Tell me her name again. I want to know.
Anne Marie Reeves. She was not Anna. Everybody calls them the two Annas, but they were not. It was Anne Marie Reeves. She was a Reeves before she married Granville.
That's a whole book in itself.
There's a book in there that has a lot of this in there. We wrote a book.
Remarkable.
But anyway, back to Anna. Like I said, she was only here a short time, but then she moved to Grafton. She went to school there and was raised up and went to college. And when she came back, she taught school for 7 years. But Anna was kind of a person that was very independent. She wanted to do something more with her life. And she got a degree in German. Now, that I didn't understand either, because we did have a lot of German families that came here to settle it. But most of them were already speaking English, so I didn't quite understand. But she got a degree in German, and she taught school for 7 years. But her brother Claude, who was another very good businessman, him and his father were both great businessmen, he decided to go to Philadelphia in 1892, where he opened the first taxi service called Quaker Cab Company, and it's still in business today. So he thought Anna was coming up to work with him because it was 1894 when she moved there. And no, she said, no, I don't want to work for my brother. I don't want my brother to keep me. I will take care of myself. So she started working for the Fidelity Mutual Insurance Company, which is still in business, and she retired from there.
What did she do there?
She was just a secretarial type thing. She said she was, what was the word? Maybe it was corresponding with the people, but it was called the literary department.
And how long was she there?
She retired from there.
Really?
She stayed with them all those years. Even when she was working to get Mother's Day, she, I guess, had a schedule where she could do the other things that she wanted to do, and she didn't have to be in the office every day. Maybe, I don't know. But it just says she worked there till she retired in the literary department.
Was she ever involved, Olive, with early suffragettes like Susan B. Anthony or any of those ladies?
She met them, and she didn't put them down, but at that time she was possessed with getting Mother's Day. Another thing with the problem with Anna was she was strong-willed and very outspoken, but whenever she said she wanted to start a Mother Day, after her mother died in 1905, she went home immediately from that grave. And she said, I'm going to do something special for my mother. What can I do? And she thought of, why can't I just honor mothers? So she wrote letters that same day after she buried her mother. She started writing to businesses, churches, organizations, anybody that might listen. Well, the letter she got back was, Dear Miss Jarvis, we love and revere our mother, but she doesn't need a day off. Leave it alone. Now, this is what they were telling her in 1905.
But she didn't give up on that.
So that only made her more determined. And like I said, she struggled from 1905 until she met Mr. Wanamaker of Philadelphia that had businesses. And he knew in the back of his mind that that was going to help his businesses because he had women's shops, things like that. it would help him make more money. He didn't tell her that. He just told her he would be willing to help her. And then he got other legislators involved, and then that's when they got to go to Wilson and put it as a holiday, a real one. But I have to put this in here because it's a good story too. In 1910, she came up with an idea. She said, okay, I've got some states already doing this one-day thing, a Mother's Day thing. I'm going to write every governor a letter and ask them if they'll just take one day, that's second Sunday in May, and celebrate mothers. Well, she got 17 states to do it. Only 17. So when Governor Underwood was governor last time, in his, when he was an older governor, he found out from me, because his wife was one of our Mothers of the Year, and he found out from me that I have copies of those letters. So he asked me if he could get copies of them, that he was in charge of the governor's meeting that year. They take a turn, each state takes a turn, and all the governors go to that state for a big conference. West Virginia was in charge of it. And he took those letters and put them on parchment paper and framed them and gave it to the governors that participated in the first Mother's Day celebration.
Oh, that's nice.
Wasn't that cool?
That's nice.
I said, that's the cutest thing you could have done. And they were very appreciative. The 17 states said, oh, wow. And there were other states said, well, we should have done that. But I thought that was a good story. But he came up with that idea, or somebody in his office came up with it. And he said, can we copy them? And I said, yeah. So he did that and gave them each a framed copy of the letter that she mailed to that governor of the time, and that they said yes.
So it was first celebrated in Grafton when?
1908.
1908.
And it's been celebrated ever since.
And where was it celebrated?
At the International, well, it was a Methodist church in town then. It was the Good Shepherd, not the Good Shepherd, was it? No, Andrew's Episcopal. I got to get that right. Andrew's Episcopal Church, because if I get it wrong, somebody's going to kill me. Anyway, but anyhow, it's the church in downtown Grafton that it's now called the International Mother's Day Shrine. After they closed the church part of it, they petitioned the conference, Methodist Conference, to give them the church, and then they named it the International Mother's Day Shrine. They still have a Mother's Day program there on Sunday of Mother's Day. And this year it'll be at 10 a.m. in the morning. And there are people that was member of that church that are, if they're still alive, but they built a new church called the Good Shepherd. And they're all coming over to that church to do their church service that morning and recognize Anna Jarvis again.
Now, I want to throw in here real quick, what's the Clarksburg connection? And I found out it's Mr. Lohr.
Right.
So can you tell me a little bit about Mr. Lohr?
Yeah, a little bit. It could be some more too in that. He was the one that Anna Jarvis got in contact with in 1908 and asked him, would you all do a special service in honoring my mother, who taught Sunday school there for years, and also all mothers. So she sent him a Pacific schedule or a program saying who was to speak, the songs she wanted played, everything was in there. And so they did it, and she also sent 500 carnations. She did that because that was her mother's favorite flower. So she went out and bought 500 carnations to be given to each mother that attended the service.
And they still do that today.
They still do that today, but they cost a lot more money. They were only a penny when she first started. And then the next year, they were 2 pennies. The third year, they went up to 4. The 5th year, I think they were 6 or 7. And she said, no more. People are making money off of my Mother's Day. So that's when she started realizing the commercialization of it.
So Mr. Lohr helped her get that started.
He helped her. He was part of the program, and he helped her get that started. And he did it for several years before, of course, he passed away.
Anyone in Clarksburg growing up remembers Lohr and White store there on 3rd Street. And I think they started in Clarksburg in 1902. So they were there many, many, many years. But he was a successful businessman here in Grafton also, wasn't he?
Because he had a Lohr's jewelry store, and he was on a lot of boards, bank boards and other things. He was very prominent here.
So we need to thank Mr. Lohr for that, too, that connection. I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yes, it is. Well, everything connects.
If
you really go back, a lot of people went to there, and a lot of people went to Barber County, like Judge R. Robinson was here, but then he went over there during the Civil War. Just and bought Ada Land, and now Ada Land's famous, and he's got all a bunch of stuff in the study up there, if that belongs to him.
I don't know about you, Olive, but you talk to someone long enough and you're either related to them or you know someone that's related to them.
Yeah, that's true. You do. My family's the worst because my grandmother had 22 kids.
Oh, my.
So when they went out and spread their word and then their kids, I couldn't marry anybody in Elkins.
So Anna got that started here in 1908, right? Is that right?
Yeah, that's when she was already in Philadelphia. Did she come
back year after year?
No, she did not. She did not come back. She didn't come back for this service. She stayed in Philadelphia and had one. They had I guess, remember, I'm not from here. So they had an argument for years, apparently, who actually had the first Mother's Day service. So Grafton had it at 10 a.m. in the morning and Philadelphia had it at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. So, of course, we're saying we started the first Mother's Day service. They're saying they started. So eventually, after I was here, I came in 93. I think it was around 98 or 99 that they finally said, okay, you guys had the first Mother's Day service and we had the second one, Mother's Day service. So they finally quit fighting after all those years.
Was she happy towards the end of her life with what she started?
No.
No. Why is that?
Well, the commercialization. Yeah. So by the time... About 1932, Anna's still, going around. She's been around the world now. She got an audience with the Queen of England. They went to the opera. She was well known all around the world. But one of the things she noticed in 1932, that things kept getting more commercialized and more commercialized. They were making more money off of everything, cars, florists, candy. And so she started going around accosting people, breaking up Mother's Day programs, wrote Mrs. Roosevelt a very nasty letter saying she had no right to use the word Mother's Day in any of her correspondence, that it was patent, and it really was. So by 1943, she knew that nobody was giving up that money, so she became a recluse. She didn't want to go out. She didn't let anybody in. By that time, she owns 2 houses. Lillian lives in one and she lives in one. Of course, Lillian passed away before she did. So
how old was she at this point?
Anna, she was in her late 70s by that point, or in her 70s, because she died in 1948, and she was 84. So she just became a recluse. But one morning, I don't know what set her off, but one morning she got up and made a petition, and her typing's terrible. You should see the letters. If she makes a mistake, she didn't white it out. She just went back and XXXXX and then finished her sentence out. I have thousands of letters of this.
It's probably easier to do that on those old typewriters.
So anyhow, she put together this petition in 1943 and was going door to door getting it signed. She wanted Mother's Day rescinded. She did not want it to be a holiday ever again. So unfortunately, the story I got when I came here was that she was wandering the streets of Philadelphia naked and blind and never knew where she was at and all this stuff. So they put her in a sanitarium, which was it's called Winchester, Pennsylvania. Out there was a big sanitarium. And we actually went there to see it. And it was really, her room was just a room with a bed and a nightstand. But on the ceiling was $1. And the lady told me that this little boy had sent her $1 and thanked her for starting Mother's Day. So she had him to put it on the ceiling for her. But she was placed in the sanitarium, and the card and florist people of the day paid her bill to keep her there. You understand that women could be put in a sanitarium for anything back in those days.
Right.
If your husband didn't want you no more, if you couldn't have children, just all kinds of wonderful stuff.
Or if you were old.
And if you were old and they didn't want to fool with you anymore.
They didn't want to take care of you.
So they put her in there, and they actually paid the bill till she died.
And where is she buried at?
She's buried up in Laurel Hill Cemetery up in Philadelphia. Her mother, her brother Claude, and her sister Lillian are all in graves together. Now, Granville, they wanted to bring Mrs. Jarvis back to be buried here in Bluemont Cemetery with Granville, and they had an infant child to die, and they had a little boy, Thomas, that was 12 that died, that's in that particular cemetery. They're all over the place, but that particular cemetery. But they couldn't bring her back because there was some kind of a plague going on then, and they wouldn't let any people come into Grafton. So they had to take her body back, and then they buried her there. And then, like I said, Lillian, Claude, and Herb all buried there together.
Did she have any family left here in Taylor County?
Yeah, she had a niece. Josiah is the only child out of the 4 that lived that ever had any kids. he had a son named Claude, and they lived in Fairview, West Virginia, when it became West Virginia. And he was a doctor also. The oldest son became a doctor, and very, very good doctor in there. We have some of his stuff out of the office that was tore down whenever they tore it down and got rid of it. But he had three grandsons and a granddaughter. Now, this Jarvis family did not multiply and divide, because the three grandsons, which we have a picture of him with them, but the granddaughter wasn't allowed to be in the picture because she was a girl. So Helen Jarvis, she married a Robinson from Fairmont, but because she couldn't have any children, he divorced her. So she took her maiden name back, and she lived in Fairview until she died, which was in 1978 or something like that. Can't remember exactly on that. I could look it up. But she lived in Fairview all that time. And even when the lawyers sent a bunch of packages from Anna's house to her because she was the only living heir, they sent a COD and she couldn't afford it because she never had an income of much of anything, apparently. So she sent them all back. So then they sent her two that they paid for. And they were in that basement. We got those. They lived there. These boxes were in the basement of her house from 1949 till I got a hold of them in 1998. I heard of them because she was already gone. She had died. And they didn't know what to do with these boxes, so they sent them to me. Here was birth certificates, her wedding certificate of Mr. and Mrs. Jarvis, lots and lots of pictures of the family. I mean, all that time, they were never, Helen never opened them up. But she did attend the shrine a few times for Mother's Day to honor Anna. But I don't know why her and her niece were never close. They did, they just never, Helen never really talked a lot about her. I've got a few quotes, but other than that, not very much.
So you have really the possessions of what she had to preserve.
And some of it we had to throw away because it was so far damaged it was wet and it
thankfully
was ruined,
you got a hold of that to save most of
somebody
that.
Thought, they heard of the Anna Jarvis Museum, so they said, oh my goodness, they called me up and said, we got these two boxes that's never been opened. Now, nobody even knew what was in them. But she brought them over to me, and
I bet that was exciting.
Oh yeah,
those boxes.
I was in hog heaven because that's when we were researching that book that Wayne Sheets wrote, and we were researching, and we had a lot of things we didn't want it answered.
That's amazing.
And so you got some more answers, but there's 1,000 more out there you can't answer. So
now, I also, before I forget, I want to ask you about, this was McClellan's headquarters, correct?
Yeah, he came here June 22nd, 1861, by train from Ohio. And he got off in front of the supply depot that used to set out there down around the turn. And the band, Marion Baker marching band, played for him. I don't know why it was Marion Baker unless that was the leader. But they played us some songs for him as he departed. And then he spent one night there. And then he went into Grafton to the same hotel, Old Central Hotel, and spent the night there setting up his command headquarters.
And how long was he here?
He was probably here a few days because the next battle was Rich Mountain. And of course, that's in July. So,
and this road, I mean, that goes right to Philippi,
right?
Doesn't it? So
this
this
was
must have been
major
a very
highway.
busy.
Yeah, major part, and it was well traveled by people because it was considered a safest direct route to travel from north to south because it was a safe route, and so lots of people traveled through Webster all the time.
I mean, Grafton had the train way before Clarksburg did, so this was a stop-off point,
right,
I think,
exactly.
as far as the train would go, wasn't it?
Yeah, right. It ended here for going to the south part, and they didn't have the train tracks up there, so it was down on where my burn pile is. There's narrow gauge there, about like this, underneath the ground. So the train track's still there, but you can't see it.
That's interesting.
Yeah, but he spent only one night in her house. They asked permission. Colonel Latham, a friend of hers, came and said, can we let him stay here one night? And two future presidents were here, Rutherford B. Hayes and McKinley.
Because they were in the war.
They were in his officers. Well, one was only a private, but the other one was an officer with him. And they were here. But he set that encampment up and left all those soldiers. I mean, they were coming and going all the time.
Did Anna's father build that house, or was that house already here?
He built it himself in 1854.
Okay. Looks amazing condition.
It really, it's pretty good. We had a little bit of problem last year because it needed to be painted. It's really hard to keep it painted, but I didn't know it was rotting in the back. And because one of the gutters had slipped, it was putting the water behind the wooden slats instead of off of them. So when we found it, then we had to do some repairs, put some new slats in and then paint it. But other than that, the inside is 95% original.
Now, if someone wants to come here and visit your museum, what are your hours? Tell again where you're located, and how do they reach you if they want to talk to you?
Okay, if they want to call, my number is 304-265-5549. That's the office number. And we're open usually from 10 to 2, Tuesday through Saturdays, and closed on Sunday and Monday.
Is that year round? Or just
no, we're only closed January, February, and March.
Okay.
We go clear through the month of December, and a lot of times I put Christmas trees up. This last year, I only got one up because there was a lot of things going on. So, and I'm old. So anyway, because of that, I only got one tree up, but I did decorate a little bit outside and stuff like that. But normally we decorate every room with a different tree with a different theme. And I've had lots of Clarksburg people have come over, the women's clubs and different things comes over and helps me decorate a tree with a theme.
Well, that's nice.
And we have had some wild themes because one year we made a woman out of the tree. And that Clarksburg GFWC did that one. And it was so pretty because we put a mannequin and then the ribbon made her skirt. It was beautiful. I mean, it was beautiful. I got all pictures of all that.
Oh, I have to come up here around Christmas time.
I'd take picture. So I have everything on pictures. But so they have a lot of fun. They'll come and do a tree. We've had little kids decorate the nursery tree. I try to get the community involved in it and get it. Like I said, we've had any kind of tree you can think of: teddy bears, teapots.
Do you advertise that on do you have a website that you
do? The website now is under Mountaineer Country. It's you go to Mountaineer Country and you can see where you can hit my website now. They set it up under them since the other one wouldn't come up hardly at all. So the website is under Mountaineer Country. And of course, we have Facebook page that I have. So they can go on Facebook page and get information too, or go to my Facebook page and get information. So it is on 119 south of Grafton, 4 miles. And also from Philippi, it's 12 miles on 119 north. If you're coming from Clarksburg, you just take Route 50 and pick up 250, and you come right past the house too. So.
And you have signs. I had no trouble
signs.
finding it. So.
And we're, like I said, we're open. We're only closed January, February, and March, and that usually gives me time to repair things inside, do a spring cleaning. How can you be ringing? And that kind of thing. So, and 8 to 2 usually. We have special events. In the summertime, we do music in the park every Saturday night starting May the 11th, goes to the end of September. And we have different music every Saturday night. Different people come and sing and all that, and we sell food. We do that as a fundraiser for the museum. Anything we make that's profit stays in the pot for getting through the winter when we're closed. We have a nice gift shop. Right now I'm trying to sell out some of my older stuff at half price because I'm getting a truckload here next month. People make things for me. These are homemade items, and they make them and donate them so we can make money for the museum. The museum's not funded. It's all of...
Most museums are
not. Yeah. So Olive pays the bills with her Social Security check, and I have a wonderful husband that says I have a really expensive hobby. That's what he calls it.
Well, it's fun, and it's entertaining, and it's educational.
Well, we came here, and like I said, we started working on it in 94. My husband that passed away, Tom Dadisman, and I. And we sold our houses. We weren't married. We were friends. Didn't know much about each other. But he said we were working on another project, which failed. So somehow we got this. We were passing through. He was going to speak in Grafton on tourism because he was a singer-songwriter. So because of that, he was dynamic. He was a performer. He would have hugged and kissed you when you walked in the door because that's what he did. Everybody loved Tom. So because when we were coming back to go back to Philippi and let me pick my car up so I could go into Elkins because he was from Philippi, I said, stop. I want to see why this house has fallen down. It's Mother's Day, something about Mother's Day. And so I went up, and this little lady named Ocean Pearl Felton, she said, would you like to have this? She scared me to death because I was looking in the window. And I said, what? And she said, would you like to have this house? And I said, sure, I love old houses. So 3 months later, she called me up and she said, this is Pearl Felton. You got the house. I said, what house? And she said, the Anna Jarvis house. I said, what? She said, yeah, the heirs are going to give it to you. And there was 17 heirs on that house because it was sold to the Willis Preston Felton heirs.
Oh, okay.
So they gave us the house on Mother's Day of 1994. And we had already worked a whole year just cleaning up the yard because it was such a mess with multiple roses. So we started restoring it, and we opened in 96. But we did it ourselves with our own hands and our own money.
Well, that's amazing. I can't wait to go over there.
Yeah, you're going to get to go see it here.
But Olive, thank you very much for talking to me today. This has been a joy. I can't wait to see the museum. But maybe I'll come back another time around Christmas time. I'd love to see those trees.
Sure. We'd start December 1st, and we'd go for the whole month. And it does cost $5 to go through the museum, and people think I'm crazy that I don't raise the price, but I still only charge $5. And
can't get much for $5 anymore, can you?
No, it doesn't raise a lot of money, but if it pays a couple of electric bills, I'm happy.
That's right.
And when we do just the Christmas tour, if you've been here to do the historical tour and you don't need that and you just want to walk through, I just charge $2 for that, just walk through. So,
well, I'm going to make a trip back here to see that. I'd like to see that.
It's really cool, and we have a lot of fun. We've had a lot of young people come here and work for me and learn the tour. Of course, they went on to college, and then you don't see them again. But there's always, but now I'm down to me. I'm doing it all now, right now. So.
Do you have a lot of school children come and do tours too?
They didn't come last year, but
COVID probably hurt you quite bad, I bet, during those couple years.
They love it because whenever they do a tour, they get to hear about the cannon. Well, we have a cannon in the dining room. And there's a couple pieces in the kitchen that I always show them, and they don't have a clue what it means and what it does.
So you have to come here to find out the story about the cannon and the dining room.
You have to come here to find out about the cannon. That's one thing you'll have to come to find out. I won't tell you what it's from. But it's there's a cannon in our dining room now. So.
Well, Olive, thank you very much for talking to me today.
You're very welcome.
I've enjoyed meeting you. The clock on the wall tells me it's about time to go, so I'm going to end the program today, and I'm going to invite you also to the Clarksburg History Museum in downtown Clarksburg. I hope you come by one day. It's on Main Street in Clarksburg. And I close every one of my podcasts this way. I say, remember to make each and every day count because you are making history today. Thank you, Olive.
That's true. Very true.
There's sweet music in the silence of your wildwood, to the rhythm played by every mountain stream. It becomes a lullaby every time that I come home to West Virginia in my dreams. West Virginia mountain melodies, there's a new river singing to me. Oh, this time it's wild and free, your West Virginia mountain melodies. I feel secure in the arms of your green valley. There's a peace you've given me that's yours alone. Take me in like a child to the gentle of your wild West Virginia. I'm coming home. Your West Virginia mountain melodies, there's a new river singing to me. Oh, this time it's wild and free, your West Virginia mountain melody. West Virginia mountain melody, there's a new river singing to me. Oh, this time it's wild and free, your West Virginia mountain